scenes capture workers being forced to return home early. Large numbers of unemployed workers carrying their belongings gather at train stations, bus stations, and on the streets, planning their departure from the cities where they once toiled day and night. This phenomenon is not isolated to a single city, but has sparked a nationwide wave of return migration. Over the next 3 years, it's highly likely that half the people will be forced to move back to their rural hometowns. The hottest days of summer have just passed, yet some people are already preparing to go home for the new year. This isn't just a mindset, it's a real phenomenon. In the past, people moved to the cities to find work, but now the wave of returning home has started 4 months early. This truly signals an early end to the labor migration wave. For workers now, the annual surge of returning home for the Lunar New Year is no longer just a seasonal occurrence. The return migration could happen at any moment, triggered by unemployment. A Chinese blogger remarked, "Every year around this time, it's supposed to be the peak season for earning money. But now we're seeing a clear wave of people heading back home. Recently, I've noticed something strange. People in my neighborhood's rental group chat have been constantly giving up their leases. It didn't make sense to me at first. They've only been working for a few months, so why are they leaving already? This wasn't the case in previous years, so I asked a friend who works in HR at a factory, and it turns out it isn't just happening in our area. If this trend continues, there will be fewer and fewer workers in the factories. What used to be about going home early for the new year has now turned into going home early, period. The main reason behind this early return wave is a continuous decline in workers' wages. When they can't make enough money, they have no choice but to go home. A woman working in a factory shared,
Guangdong province is no longer a good place for work. Many factories are now empty, and industrial buildings have turned into logistics warehouses. This summer, student workers in factories are earning just 10 yuan per hour, yet everyone is still scrambling for these jobs.
This blogger also mentioned that in his area, factory wages are incredibly low. After the new year, many workers go out to find jobs, and labor agencies usually recommend formal positions. Normally, they offer double pay for weekend overtime and 1.5 times pay for regular overtime. With that, you could earn 6,000 or 7,000 yuan a month, which isn't bad. But if you actually start working at these factories, you'll find that your take-home pay is far less, only about 3,000 to 5,000 yuan. Why? Because the high pay the labor agencies talk about only happens when the factory is doing well, with lots of overtime. But what's the current situation? Everyone knows it. Factories barely have enough work to avoid shutdowns, let alone offer overtime. So based on the actual hours worked each month, it's impossible to earn 6,000 or 7,000 yuan, especially with the rising cost of living. Plus, most factories only cover meals, not housing, so you have to rent a place nearby. In our small town, renting a one-bedroom apartment costs 600 or 700 yuan a month, which isn't cheap. Add in utilities and daily expenses, and you're looking at a minimum of over 1,000 yuan a month. Many workers also need to send money back home, so it's impossible to save anything. Working in a factory has become a losing proposition. People are even predicting that this early return trend will become increasingly severe across China. Within 5 years, I can confidently say that at least 40% of migrant workers will have no choice but to return to their rural hometowns, even if they're unwilling. Why do I say this? There are 3 main reasons. First, the era of real estate is completely over. Over 60 industries closely tied to real estate will also enter a downturn, leading to an oversupply of jobs in these fields. Many workers, especially migrant laborers, real estate agents, brokers, building material wholesalers, and decorators will lose their jobs and won't be able to switch careers. With no other options, they'll be forced to return home. Second, with the rise of artificial intelligence, job opportunities in cities are shrinking for ordinary people. The era of automation is coming fast. Not just drivers, but even delivery workers, couriers, cleaners, security guards, and wait staff will be replaced. Without skills, it's impossible to survive in the city, and returning to the countryside will be the only option. Third, as the economic downturn continues, every industry is struggling. The combination of weak consumption and excess production capacity is leading to fierce competition. Workers are working endless overtime just to keep their jobs. and business owners are working around the clock, often at a loss. As more and more people lose hope, they'll have no choice but to return to the countryside and seek a different way of life. So in August, as the job market becomes even tougher, factory recruitment sites are packed with people. The number of job seekers is growing, with hundreds competing for a single position. This has led factories to raise their standards, with some even setting an age limit of 38 years old for workers. This girl, who couldn't find a job after graduating from college and is now working in a supermarket, said,
"It's really hard to make money. I work 10 hours a day in a supermarket and only earn 100 yuan, which isn't even enough to cover my meals. A simple lunchbox costs me 15 yuan, so to save money, I have to make do with just a piece of bread."
In the video, her eyes are filled with exhaustion and helplessness. This business owner also shared his thoughts. Don't come to Shenzhen anymore. Right now, workers in Shenzhen can't find jobs, and business owners can't get orders. Just yesterday, I visited a client who has been running his factory for over 10 years. He used to have more than 30 employees, but now, after layoffs, he's down to just a handful. He's losing 150,000 yuan every month and told me he doesn't know if he can make it to the end of the year. People say the unemployment rate is high, but just how hard is it to find a job? If you step outside, you'll see that almost every company is talking about layoffs. To see for myself, I created a resume to test the market. I've been in business for over a decade, so I wanted to know if I could find a job. I sent my resume to 200 companies and communicated with them, but in the end, even I couldn't land a job. The dire employment situation is straining everyone in China, and the rising cost of living only adds to the pressure. The high cost of survival has left many people across China on the brink of collapse due to financial stress. Chinese social commentator Zai Xiangying also highlighted that unemployment is China's biggest and most difficult challenge. The biggest issue facing China is unemployment. Economic problems and other issues can be postponed. Pension problems can wait, and people not getting married or having kids can be delayed. But there's one problem that can't be put off, and that's unemployment. The number of unemployed people in China is staggering. What does this lead to? The government is still cutting jobs in public institutions, even though there aren't enough jobs to begin with. Now, with August and September approaching, a new wave of college graduates will flood the job market. Think about how many workers there are in China. Around 700 million. If even 100 million of the 1.4 billion people in China are unemployed, what kind of chaos will that bring? People won't have enough to eat because without jobs, there's no income, and no one is going to feed you. Some say you can apply for government assistance, but do you know how difficult it is to qualify? Very few people meet the requirements. Others say there's unemployment insurance, but that's only available if you're laid off by your company. If you quit voluntarily, you're not eligible. This means many people might really struggle to survive. If this continues, all the factors for social unrest in China will emerge. China is so large that if chaos really breaks out, no one will be able to control it, and it won't be over quickly. Behind the unemployment crisis lies the biggest pain point: weak market demand in mainland China, where consumer spending can't be stimulated. China's economy has shrunk to the point where even the lipstick economy can no longer hold up. According to a Yahoo Finance report, an increasing amount of data shows that Chinese consumers are becoming more cautious, cutting back on non-essential spending like movies and live performances. In this atmosphere of growing consumer caution, many movie theaters are feeling the pressure, and the film industry may be heading for tougher times. Director Chen Shih-cheng is the first director in mainland Chinese cinema history to break 10 million yuan in box office revenue. He just released his big-budget film Decoded on August 3rd. Despite its 500 million yuan production cost, the film's box office performance has been disappointing, grossing less than 1.9 billion yuan so far, much below market expectations. It's estimated that the film will lose at least 300 million yuan. In July, the classic summer film A Legend starring Hong Kong action star Jackie Chan also experienced a sharp decline in box office revenue and faced widespread criticism and poor reviews from audiences. Additionally, the film A Dream of the Red Chamber, The Romance of the Gold and Jade, which was touted as taking 18 years to make, was released in mainland China on August 16th, but its box office performance has been weak. As of August 25th, the film has grossed only 5.3 million yuan, making it another box office disaster in China's film history. Typically, when the economy starts to decline, movie revenues tend to rise. This is because most people cut back on spending and opt for cheaper forms of entertainment like movies. This is an example of the lipstick effect in economics. But now, with the economy in decline and box office revenues also falling, it suggests that the state of China's economy may be worse than we anticipated. Commentator Lan Shu believes this suggests that China's economy has entered a state of rapid decline, one that shows no signs of stopping. The debt owed by various levels of CCP government and the increasingly left-leaning economic policies are making things worse. As a result, it is likely that cinema revenues will continue to hit new lows over the next year and beyond. Local governments across China have rolled out creative and attention-grabbing initiatives this year to stimulate consumption. But the main consumer base, about 500 million middle-class citizens, remains reluctant to spend. The economic downturn has made even leisure activities a source of stress. According to recent survey data released by renowned Chinese financial writer Wu Xiaobo, about 45% of the middle class aged 25 to 45 reported a decline in their overall assets last year, making them hesitant to spend freely. This figure has been rapidly increasing each year, from 8% in 2021 to 31% in 2022. For the average middle-class person in mainland China, dealing with pay cuts, layoffs, and falling property values has forced them to cut back on spending in all areas, not just on entertainment and movies, but in every part of life. Mr. Yang is considered a member of the middle class from Fujian. He said that after the COVID lockdowns ended, the economy worsened. Many middle-class individuals faced with unemployment or pay cuts while still having to pay off their mortgages have slipped into the lower middle class. Previously, they enjoyed traveling each year, but now traveling is only for the sake of checking in. A worker in Thailand's tourism industry, Mr. Liu, noted that the Chinese tourists now coming to Thailand are mostly from the lower middle class. In an effort to attract customers, some Chinese travel agencies have even advertised luxury 7-day tours of Thailand for as little as 555 yuan. Despite these efforts, the number of Chinese tour groups visiting Thailand this summer has more than halved compared to previous years. Mr. Liu added that not only are there fewer groups, but their spending power has significantly declined. In recent tours he has led, even with guides shouting themselves hoarse, popular activities like parasailing have seen no takers. Most Chinese tourists now just sleep on the bus, get off to use the restroom, take a few photos at the sites, and spend little to no money otherwise. It gives the impression that they're only interested in saying, "I've been here." Mr. Liu also mentioned that many of the Chinese tourists he encountered were freelancers. One tourist, a small business owner from Wuhan, shared his story. Before the pandemic, his store on Hanzan Street could earn 10,000 to 20,000 yuan a month, which is quite satisfying. But now he considers himself lucky if he can just keep the business afloat. Hanzan Street in Wuhan, Hebei Province, is a well-known hub for small goods, famous across Southeast Asia. It's comparable to Yiwu's small commodity markets, and sometimes even more popular. But now it has fallen into a state of near desertion. This business owner showed Mr. Liu a video he had taken of the area, once a bustling commercial street packed with people. Now only a few shops remain open, the rest have shut down. Clothing stores are the most affected because, for consumers, clothes are non-essential. On the other hand, fewer restaurants have closed, as people still need to eat, but stores selling travel products, small accessories, and souvenirs have completely gone under, with consumers no longer buying such items. Mr. Zhu from Guangzhou shared a similar experience. He recently noticed that many street-level shops in Guangzhou have closed down, and several commercial buildings are also shutting their doors. Even well-known restaurants are seeing very few customers. He said, "I've been to Dongguan and Shenzhen, and many places are now sparsely populated. For instance, there's a Hunan restaurant near Window of the World theme park in Shenzhen that used to be quite popular. Before the new year, it was so crowded that there was no space to park a baby stroller. But when I recently took some friends there, the place was nearly empty. The term deserted fits perfectly." Mr. Wu from Guangzhou also shared his experience. In mid-August, he returned to his hometown in Guangzhou and was shocked by how deserted the area had become. Employment and business opportunities there have significantly declined, with many shops closing in 2023 and 2024. In mid-June, the owner of a Shao County snack shop in a village in Guangzhou's southern Panyu district told him that after the October 1st vacation in 2023, many people left and never returned. Following the May Day holiday in 2024, even more people left. Compared to before the pandemic in 2019, the village has lost at least half its migrant population and businesses. As a result, doing business after the lockdowns were lifted has become even more challenging than during the lockdowns because many of the customers have returned to their hometowns. Mr. Tang from Fuzhou is also considering joining the wave of returning home. He used to work in the construction industry, but the real estate downturn has left him without work for more than half a year, forcing him to stay home. He said, "Now, many people can't find jobs. In this state of lying flat, they save on everything except food. Unlike before, when they would buy whatever they wanted, they're now just hanging on. When they can't hold on any longer, they decide to return home." He mentioned a woman he knows in Guangzhou who, in her 40s, has faced severe financial difficulties 3 times. Currently, she has no income and only earns a small amount when she finds occasional work. Now bedridden and without money for medical treatment, she can't even go to the hospital on her own due to her health condition. This situation is truly worrying. If it goes on for too long, she might starve to death. Mr. Tang, struggling with his own situation, is unable to offer much help, but he knows it's impossible to rely on the government to take care of her. This kind of situation is common among the lower class, who see no hope for the future. They endure their hardship day by day, hoping for a significant change or even a complete overhaul of the current regime.